following up with leads, it takes time, it's tedious, it's a little boring, and it's something that's very easy to be like, oh, I'll just get to that later. But the problem is literally every minute that goes by, once you get a new lead, the chance of that lead engaging with you goes down exponentially. So it's something that you have to treat seriously, you have to take seriously, and you have to put a lot of energy behind it. When you get leads in, if they didn't initially take action on whatever your thing is, if you don't follow up with those people, you're leaving money on the table, and you have to do it in a timely fashion. You have to put energy behind it. And if you do that, you're going to have a ton of success. But if you don't, you will fail, you'll get frustrated. And it's by far the biggest mistake that I see people make is they don't follow up with all of these leads that they've gotten.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms. Here's your host, Bryce Henson.
Hey, welcome back, my friends, to another amazing episode of the Fitness CEO Podcast. And before I tee up today's guest, I want to give you a friendly reminder. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, write us an amazing review on iTunes. That way we can keep producing this content for you for free. So now to introduce today's guest, who's a dear friend of mine, the Executive Director of Coaching and Profitability, coming from Calgary, Canada, in the Great White North. And today going to give you insight in his backstory, how he climbed the ranks from becoming a geophysicist all the way to the Executive Director of Marketing for an international franchise, and more specifically, give you the top 10 mistakes to avoid in direct response marketing. Mr. Joel Kotkas, welcome to the show. All right, friends, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Fitness CEO Podcast. And here in the studio with my dear friend, Executive Director of Marketing for Fit Body Bootcamp franchise, Mr. Joel Kotkas.
Thanks for having me, Bryce.
All right, we have a lot to cover today, and you are a man of many talents, and marketing is certainly one of them. And some of the big takeaways I want to talk about, especially your zone of genius, being direct response marketing, which you've learned over the better part of the last decade. So we're going to highlight, some of the your observations, not only what works, but really the top mistakes that marketers make in direct response. Before we do, especially being the first time in the show, I want to kind of unpeel the onion for the director or executive director of marketing for the entire Fit Body Bootcamp brand. You're based in Canada. Really want to kind of learn your backstory, and then you're a location owner, multi-location owner. So let's dive into that. So can you give us the backstory, how this all come to be?
Sure. I don't know how far back you want me to go, but maybe I'll start with sort of just my career. So yeah. I always loved health and fitness. It was something that really, specifically nutrition. I don't know why nutrition was like the first trigger for me, but that really started in junior high. And I really carried that through. But coming out of high school, the environment that we live in nowadays is a lot different on a career that you can have in health and fitness or wellness. Whereas, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. There wasn't that many options. So even though that was a passion of mine, I didn't really see an opportunity to have like a really solid career in that. Yeah. And I took a complete turn, and I went in, I got a degree in geophysics, and I became a geophysicist, and I did that for about 6 or 7 years. But internally, I still always had this calling of like back to like nutrition, back to fitness. It was always something that was pulling me there. I had a few friends that have kind of gone the entrepreneurship route, and that was sort of like, man, if they can do something, like maybe I could too. When I was probably in about year 5 of being a geophysicist, I kind of felt like, all right, I'm either in this or now's the time to like explore something else. Mm-hmm. And so I started to explore. I got certified in nutrition. I had a little online nutrition thing, kind of stumbled through a few things of what I wanted to do, but it never really stuck. Like I knew I was enjoying it. I knew I was going in the right direction, but I hadn't really figured out, all right, this is my path in fitness or in nutrition. And I actually ended up coming to a seminar. It was called the Online Info Blueprint Workshop. I think it's probably a punchier, sexier name than that, but it was led by Bedros and Craig Ballantyne. So I flew down from Alberta, Canada, down to Orange County, participated, I think it was a 2-day workshop where they were really just teaching like how to have an online info business.
What year was this about?
This would have been 2014. Yeah, 2014, I think is when this was. Yep. And at the time, it wasn't a Fit Body Bootcamp thing, but I remember he asked how many Fit Body owners were in the crowd. And a few people put up their hands. And at the time, I was like, well, what's Fit Body Bootcamp? So I remember searching up. I was kind of like, that's kind of cool. And then I just kind of left it at that. Flew back to Canada, kept doing my nutrition thing for about 6 more months. And then really realized like, okay, this isn't quite what I wanted to do. And I remember specifically having the thought, I was like, what was that Fit Body Bootcamp thing again? Looked it up, read about it, researched it a little bit more. And I was like, all right, I think I want to do this. And at the time, my wife and I, we had just had our first. So going out on like a new venture was a little nerve-wracking for me. And so I actually reached out to my brother, Jared, who was just coming out of university. And I said, hey, check out this Fit Body Bootcamp thing. I really want to do it. I think it'd be cool to kind of partner and do this together. I was like, and the city that he was in at the time didn't have a Fit Body boot camp. So I was like, we could open one there. The city that I was in, I think had about 15 Fit Body boot camps. So he looked at it, said, yeah, let's do it. And sort of like the rest is history from a Fit Body standpoint.
What was your brother's foundation? Because obviously you said you weren't properly trained nutrition. You're a geophysicist by trade, which is the running joke in a very positive way. You're the brains behind the operation here at HQ. But you had that interest in fitness and nutrition. What about Jared? Was his background there? Was this kind of like a new uncharted territory for him?
Yeah, he was actually coming out of university with a degree in neuroscience. So he had a geophysicist and a neuroscientist going to go open a Fit Body boot camp. So it ended up being great.
Look at that. So you've scaled to multiple locations. So you have 3 locations in Alberta.
Yeah.
2 in Calgary area,
Yep.
and then 1 just north of the border in a city called Lethbridge.
Yeah.
So when you first kicked off, because I'm curious how your marketing lens kind of in passion grew, and there's a previous episode that Barrett and I shot about the personality styles, and I believe both you and Jared are very high eagle owl. Owls are very analytical focused, usually like engineers or scientists by trade, which really lends itself very nicely from a marketing perspective because there's a lot of like details and insights from analytics, et cetera. When you first started, because I think there's some probably good takeaways for the audience as well, especially if they're partnering with a family member or a friend. What action step or what role did you take in the company, and then what role did Jared take, and then how did you kind of find your way into the marketing front?
Yeah, what we did at first was because he was going to be in the city that we were opening our Fit Body. I was in Calgary, which was 2 hours away. We kind of just said, okay, I'll do anything that I can do remotely. That's what I'll take on. And you have to be in, he had to be coaching, he had to be selling, he had to be doing everything in the location. So I just naturally took on everything that I could be doing remotely. Marketing was one of those things. I had zero experience.
Kind of by default, just on the situation of logistical circumstance.
Yeah. I started doing finance. I started doing marketing. I started doing anything that I could remotely, had zero experience in it. But I think one of the reasons marketing I was drawn to it and I did become decently good at it was kind of what you said was I treat it as like a problem. It's like we have a problem and then how can we solve it? And I'm good at like reverse engineering the steps that need to happen. So I think I was pretty good at being able to like analyze a problem and then coming up with the solution for that. And I really enjoyed that. And that was something that I liked about being a geophysicist too. Everything was just solving a problem, and marketing is just solving a problem and coming up with a sort of like a game plan to get the outcome that you want, knowing what you're trying to achieve.
So is it fair to say that you really kind of took that and ran with it? And then Jared, I'm curious even to this day, and granted this is, 2014, 15 when you open your location. So your locations are fully mature, battled through COVID at a very restrictive place like Alberta, just like California. So you've been able to thrive despite that. Certainly, had a contraction along the way, like most brick and mortars throughout the world during that time frame. But is your still role like a marketing perspective, and what's Jared's role?
Yeah, and he still kind of has a bit like he's not coaching or anything like that, but he oversees our facility leaders. He does have more interaction with our coaches. So he's definitely still more hands-on, so to speak, even though he's not like in the business coaching like he was back then.
Fast forward, walk us through. You're an incredibly smart guy. Partner with your brother, have done incredible things with your own Fit Body locations. But then the opportunity came in 2021, and when I say came, I mean I think you took the opportunity, which is incredible. And having a strong relationship with you and Jared over the years, I just knew talent when I saw it, and I knew your knack for marketing. You're one of the best owners in our brand. So you reached out to me, Matt Wilbur, Barrett, a few other of our teammates here at HQ, and just kind of started a dialogue. And I remember vividly, like, hey, Bryce, I think I'm on to something from a marketing perspective. We've had a really, really challenging time with COVID, just like, most locations, but us specifically in Calgary, which the restrictions are even worse. And we just took a step back in the COVID rebound and asked ourselves, is there a better way to bring on board and really deliver client results? And that was kind of the initial conversation you had with me, which really led to, I guess, the UTP, which we'll talk about. We shot another episode about that. But I'm curious on what you saw in that period of time, and then what the opportunity. Why were you attracted to put your hand in the air to be on our marketing team and now be the executive director of marketing for our whole brand? So can you share a little bit about from that perspective?
Yeah, I think I remember at the time, HQ was just going through a bit of a transition of like specifically with marketing on bringing things a little more internally to HQ, making a few transition with like personnel. And I kind of thought as an opportunity based on the things that we were testing at our locations, like, hey, maybe as we move forward, as HQ is planning on making more of a internal marketing team rather than outsourcing to these third-party companies for everything. Like, hey, I think there's maybe an opportunity for us to do even better based on what we were seeing, based on how we could service other franchise partners. And so that's when I sort of reached out to you and be like, hey, Bryce, I think we could do this a little bit differently. And so kind of like threw my hand in the air and being like, I'd love to help out and sort of make this marketing team really successful at HQ.
And that's what you've done. And I think there's I'm going to look to our camera here. I think there's a big takeaway as well. And, Joel first came in and led with value first and foremost. He didn't ask for a high salary, didn't ask for have all these demands. He had an idea and a vision. And, given his track record, given his success, his intelligence, our relationship, it was worth me taking a look at that. And again, it was the lack of entitlement, the way he showed up with energy, with enthusiasm, with that problem solving in mind, which really opened up the door. And then within a very short period of time, within a few months, the initiatives you started putting together, gain traction not only for your locations but across the board. And we're gonna sync you or remind you to encourage you, I should say, to check out the other episode that we shot, which is the Ultimate Transformation Program breakdown, if you will, which is now kind of a front runner way that we bring in clients, brand wide. So yeah. I think it's just a great, coaching opportunity to our audience and just speaks volume of you, my friend.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So that all said, we want to kind of lay down the foundation, but really I asked you in preparation, for this episode, from your marketing genius, being a really, really strong direct marketer, to really unpack some common mistakes, because you've been able to have a lot of experience in your own locations, but now you get to coach hundreds of owners throughout North America, not only in Canada, but throughout the United States. So you see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I asked you, to come prepared for this show. Just some of the top 10 mistakes that you see. So we have our list right here, and I just want to kind of like tee them up and get some perspective on each. The first being not doing it. So really, what does that mean?
Yeah, and I want to preface, these direct marketing covers such a spectrum of what you could be marketing. So these mistakes are really what I see with like service, brick and mortar type locations like fitness, but you could really take this to any service-based industry. If you're marketing like e-commerce or something like that, these top 10 mistakes might not apply to that. But if you're like fitness, if you're service-based brick and mortar, I think these like strongly apply. And
before you go into that, that's a great way to preface. Also too, can you take a step back and quickly like highlight the difference between direct response and then also the branding play? And at Fit Body Bootcamp for Franchise Resort, we need both, but typically speaking from a location level, they need to be really, really strong at direct response. So can you kind of articulate and shed some light there?
Yeah. So direct response is really where you're trying to get a lead or an audience to take a call to action, as like you're really trying to get them to do something. So for example, you might be like, hey, sign up for my thing or come try my trial. And that's what you're marketing. You're saying, I have this program, come give it a shot, whatever it is. Brand awareness, you're not asking them to do anything. Like you never see Coca-Cola run an ad of like, come buy this case of soda. It's just they have their commercials with their Christmas polar bears and they're just doing all these things. There's no ask, there's no call to action. It's just putting themselves out there. Mm-hmm. So brand awareness, the easiest way to think of it, brand awareness never has a call to action. Direct response, you're trying to get someone to take action.
Awesome. And I appreciate that insight. And really as a general rule of thumb as well, if you're a local brick and mortar, you should not be running branding. You really need to basically, every dollar you put in the marketing engine, you need to basically have your prospects take that call to action, try your trial, execute or join your challenge, join your nutrition coaching program, whatever the case may be. At a franchise or system, we have the, opportunity and the privilege to be able to execute branding. And that really in conjunction from a brand perspective, but also to, helping and working with our local franchise partners, that's where really the magic happens. And that's how we've been able to scale to hundreds of locations, since inception.
Yeah. And there's two things you have to always be aware of with branding. Number one, it's it takes a long time. So it has to be something like a local brick and mortar. You could be doing brand awareness, but rather than spending tons of money on it, those could just be like your organic social media posts that you're making. It doesn't cost you anything. It just takes a lot of time, and eventually you build this brand of kind of like what you stand for. So it takes a lot of time to build that brand awareness. So if you're trying to, if you're starting out, or if you're really trying to grow and really grow your revenue, brand awareness might not be the best when you're small, because it just takes a long time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, because you don't have that call to action, you're not going to have clients coming in and participating in the thing that you want to. And I remember making that mistake with our locations in the beginning, because I was kind of like, well, maybe brand awareness is a better way to do it. And, after doing it for a month and getting kind of no result from it, you quickly realize that, okay, for us, direct response is definitely the better strategy.
Yeah. And that's the value, again, at the franchise system. You have that support from a direct response aspect. We teach you the systems, the processes, the operations, and you certainly have a heavy hand in that, Joel. And then, of course, you have the brand recognition, the brand awareness on your side. But that all said, let's kind of dive in. And I'm glad you prefaced that and also, did some teaching in terms of the difference of direct response and branding. And really, we're going to be talking about, some common mistakes, a top 10 list, if you will, of mistakes of direct response marketers make. And would love your insight.
So number one, most gyms, most brick and mortar, they don't do it. They don't run direct response paid traffic. They just rely on referrals, on organic posts, on word of mouth, and all of those things are good.
Yep.
But it's really challenging to scale if you're not doing direct response. So I think that's one common mistake. And when I see, the cities that we have our locations in, and I know the gyms that are around us, they don't market at all. And you can definitely tell, like in those cities, we're usually the top performing gym, but we put a lot of energy behind running direct response ads. So I think that's the number one mistake, is just people don't do it.
And that's a huge reason that you've been able to, grow and thrive, 3 hustling, bustling locations and be able to navigate through COVID as well. How about number 2?
Number 2 is not having a strong offer. So if people are running ads, and this is a common mistake I do see all the time. So for example, when I do see some of those fitness centers running ads, their offer or the ad that you see is just really weak. They're just, it's like, come try us out, or come try us out for a free workout. And it's just not something that people are really compelled to take action on. What you're trying to do is capture an audience and get them to take action on your thing. And if your offer is really weak, it's not going to perform well. An example that I always use that people can usually understand, if you were scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, whatever you like to use, and you saw an ad, say you had like kind of a sore back, and you saw an ad that said, hey, come in for a free chiropractic consultation. It's free. Chances of you like taking action on that thing is like, probably not very strong.
Yep.
But if you saw an ad that was like, we will cure your back pain in 30 days or your money back, chances of you taking action on that thing are pretty strong.
High.
So having that strong offer when you are running direct marketing, direct response ads, having that strong offer makes a huge difference. And it's the difference between having one that works and having one that doesn't. Because you and I could both be doing the same thing, but if your offer is weak and my offer is strong, I'm going to have a lot more success than you are. So having a strong offer is really important.
In our episode that we do our UTP breakdown, we'll provide a lot more visibility. But the other example that you brought to the table, Joel, both you and Jared, was the difference of offers of, hey, try a free workout session versus, do you want to lose weight? We'll guarantee that you lose 15 pounds within 12 weeks, or you've trained for free until you do. Now, if you're a client or a prospect in the area, which ad are you going to respond to? And you need to lose weight? Clearly the one that provides a direct solution and a guarantee behind that. And that's another classic example. All right, next up, how about number 3?
Number 3 is having weak copy. So copy just stands for the words that you have on your ad. And so a lot of times what I see is when people now say you have a strong offer, but you need to still capture your audience. So you might know that you have a strong offer, but if the words that you put on your ad are weak and they're not very compelling and they don't pull that lead in, you're still not going to get them to take action. So you really need to have strong copy. An acronym that I follow every time I write copy for myself or for us as a brand is AIDA. So AIDA. The first A stands for attention. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to call out your prospect, the leads, whoever your avatar is, you're trying to get them to say like, hey, I've got something for you. So if you were that chiropractor, maybe you'd be like, hey, people with back pain, that might be the first thing that you have in your ad. Or for us, usually our avatar is mostly women. So you might be like, hey, women in your location, or your city, hey, women in Calgary.
And that pulls people because it's still local, right? And you're just trying to get attention with A.
Right. So they see that and they say, oh, I'm a woman in Calgary. I might read whatever this is. So that's what the first A stands for. You need to capture their attention. The second is I, which is interest. What do I have that might interest them? So for example, after I say, hey, women in Calgary, I might say, are you interested in losing weight? Or are you interested in losing 15 pounds or your money back? And you can start. So now you're trying to say, hey, I've got this thing. It might be of interest to you. So they read that and they're like, oh, this is interesting. Then what you do is you're usually going to have a little more copy, which is what the D stands for. And that's the desire. And there you're really pulling on the heartstrings of saying, hey, maybe you're in this pain. Maybe this is your problem and this is the solution that we have. So now you're really trying to showcase them like, this is what we have to offer you. Are you interested? So that's what that D stands for, is the desire outcome that they want. So I have the solution to your problem. And then the last A stands for action, which is now you're trying to get them to take action on what you want to do. And it's simply like you're telling them, click here or click on this button to learn more. So it's attention, interest, desire, action. And that's a really simple way that you can write really strong copy if you're fairly new to it.
The framework of ADA. So love that. Number 4, not having a large enough budget. Talk about Joel.
And maybe not having a large enough budget in the right way to position it. But what I do see very, very common is that people, they will be marketing, but they'll be spending like $10 a day or $20 a day. And if you're really trying to have success with paid traffic and direct response ads, you have to throw a little bit of money behind it. So general rule of thumb for me is I always recommend owners spend a minimum of $50 a day, but closer to that $100 a day is really like a sweet spot to be. So if you are running direct response marketing and everything else is in check, but you're spending $15 or $20 or $25 a day and wondering why you're not getting a lot of traction, could be one of the reasons.
And I know you really harp on this to our franchise partners, to our CAP team, to really make strong recommendations, because I think it's just human nature. And Joel, I've been there as well as a new owner, being they're overwhelmed. You have so many things going on, and every single hard-earned precious dollar, you're scared in terms of putting that marketing engine. But I will definitely acknowledge and reinforce what you said. Vast majority of times, people do not put enough ad spend in their budget to really see whether their copy or their ad or really their offer is working or not. And when you do, and you do put enough money behind it, then even if it doesn't work, then you have at least visibility. Okay, this didn't work. Now let's adjust strategy to basically find a winner.
If you didn't have the success, it's not because you weren't spending enough. And a lot of times we see it. If an owner does increase their budget a bit, that now all of a sudden they start to get the results they want. And the marketing world for paid direct response ads, it's more expensive than it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, maybe you could get away with $25 a day to get the result that you want, but now you have to spend a little more.
What's up, my friend? Bryce here. Now, you might know me as the co-host of this podcast and the CEO of FitBody. But what many people don't know is that I actually began my journey as a FitBody franchise owner. Now, being an owner, I wake up every day absolutely doing what I love. I live my passion. I help people transform their lives and have both financial and personal freedom. And it's for these reasons and many more that other owners join the brand and open their own FitBody locations too. So if you're looking to build a highly profitable business, take charge of your life, and create an impact in your very own community, then opening a FitBody gym might be a perfect fit for you. Now, to see if a territory is available in your area, as we have very limited spots due to our incredible growth, go ahead and visit our website at fbbcfranchise.com to complete an application. Well, thanks, and back to the show.
All right, number 5, what do you got? Keep your ads set simple. What do you mean by that?
So we hear this. I remember, especially when I was really trying to learn marketing, you'd listen to all these podcasts. And again, when I preface this for local, for service-based, for gyms, for brick and mortar, that's where this comes into play. Because when I was learning about marketing and learning, how to set up ads and how to set up ad sets and how to create these audiences, I wouldn't say they got very convoluted, but there's a lot of steps to it. And you have these huge audiences and you have multiple ad sets to all these different audiences. And within those ad sets, you have all these different ads. And it becomes a lot. But when you scale that down from, an audience, let's say you're marketing to North America, or if you're marketing to the world, if you have this online business or this e-commerce thing, you're marketing to millions or hundreds of millions of people. Your audiences, your ads, your ad sets, they can be and probably need to be a little bit more convoluted. But when you take that down to local to brick and mortar to service-based, it can just be really simple. Your audience is usually pretty small, like 50 to 100,000 people. You don't need to have multiple ad sets. You don't need to be running 10 ads in each ad sets and have 40 different things running at the same time. What I like to teach to our franchise partners and works really well is you have one ad copy. So the words that you have, that's the ad copy that you use. Use 3 or 4 different images or videos, and that's it. You just have one audience. You have one ad copy, 3 or 4 images, because the images is really what captures people's attention. So that's the thing that you need to switch up the most, but it can be that simple. And a lot of times I see people trying to make it too complicated.
All right, that is number 5. Number 6, what do you got here?
All right, so focusing on cost per lead instead of quality per lead. And I think this is really, really important. It took me a long time to learn as well. There's lots of strategies that we can do to get more leads or to get your cost per lead really, really low. And I don't ever like to say there's a bad lead. Like all leads are good leads. It's good to have a lead because you never know what might come of that. Correct. But there's definitely a spectrum of leads. And so if you're always running ads, even if they're direct response, where you're just trying to get as many leads as you can for as cheap as you can, the chances that you can turn those leads into your client, whatever your service-based business is going to be less. I actually like when our cost per lead is around like that $15 per lead rather than $2 per lead. Because if it's $2 per lead, it means I'm getting a lot of people just stick their hand in the air saying, I'm interested in this thing. And usually the only way to do that is if you're doing like a giveaway or like, here's my free thing. And a lot of people are like, oh, I want to win something or I want this free thing. And they'll stick their hand in the air and they'll opt in to become a lead. But it's really hard and you'll put a lot of energy to try to turn that lead into a client and you can get a little bit frustrated. So sometimes it's better to not always focus on the cost per lead, but focus on the quality per lead. You don't want your lead cost to obviously shoot through the roof, but there's definitely a balance, almost like a bell curve. And you want to be in the middle of that bell curve on your cost per lead, because if your cost per lead is still strong, but not super cheap, then your quality of that lead is going to be strong and you'll be able to turn them into a client much more successfully.
That is so true. And it took me a while to figure that piece out, but it's not just about volume, it's about quality and, touche. Really.
Yeah. And I still get pulled back into that every once in a while. You want to do a giveaway, you want to just get a bunch of leads and you do it. And then you kind of reflect and you're like, okay, I remember why we don't do that all the time.
And also too, it can cause operational actually cost to your business. Okay. Because then your sales team is basically like recruiting and following up and text messaging and all that. And if they actually just had a higher qualified lead, it would actually save you from an operational and payroll perspective. So, another, thing to consider as you're running your business.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Number 7, making your funnel too complicated. What do you mean by this?
And this, I was definitely guilty of this a few years ago, but a lot of times people, they want to build a lot of automation. They want to build a very fancy funnel where they can do as little as possible. And so, you get a new lead and they opt into your ad. And then you want to write this email sequence that sends them all these emails. And then you want to drive them to a sales page. And if they do this on the sales page, then this happens. But what if they don't do this? Well, then I'm going to send them this. And you build this huge funnel that becomes really, really complicated. Can it work? Sure. But when you're service-based, when you're small, when you're local brick and mortar, the best way to convert a lead into a client is with a human element. And so this is what has really changed the game for us, changed the game for FitBody, is once we realized rather than trying to automate everything and just using emails and sales pages and try to remove the human element, once we get the lead, if we actually insert the human element, that's where we have the most success. So rather than trying to build this complicated funnel, just get the lead and then just text them or give them a call. Like, it's inefficient, but what you can convert that lead to for a client, both from a conversion percentage standpoint, but also from a cost standpoint, you can now put them in a program that's more expensive. It's a better ROI for you. And you insert that human, remove the complicated funnel, and your success goes through the roof.
It is so true. And this terminology that you brought to the table, Joel, is tie a phone to the funnel instead of just an automation to the funnel. And interesting, I don't know why this is, but human nature, especially from a sales and marketing perspective, we almost think that we're marketing and selling to robots, especially if we're like with the automation flow. And if you actually take a step back and think to yourself, okay, if you were marketed to, how would you you want to be reached out to? Typically speaking, you want to reach out to a human. And I know you're listening to this right now. Someone in the audience being like, remembering a time where you're so frustrated, you're talking to an automated system, you're like, just give me a human already.
Yeah.
Like that is the secret sauce. And I think just that validates your point.
Yeah. And you're trying to convert this person, and you're a service-based business, which is a human interaction and it's a relationship. So why wouldn't you start with that on the front end?
What else do we got?
All right. Not being consistent. So a lot of times people, when they're running their ads, they'll market for a little bit and then they won't market for a few weeks. And then they'll be like, oh crap, I need some more leads. I need some more sales. And they try to like fire back up their ad campaign. They do it for a bit and then they turn it off. You obviously need to have a good system in place. And by system, I mean a way to follow up with your leads and a way to convert your leads into clients. That needs to be dialed in. Once you have that dialed in, you should never stop marketing. It should be something that runs every single day, obviously within your budget, but you don't want to turn it off, turn it back on. You're inconsistent. Your market doesn't really know you exist all the time. It's something that you want to be consistent with. Obviously, you're changing your ads all the time. You can change your offer once in a while, but you just need to be consistent with doing it every single day, every single week, every single month.
Consistency also compounds from a leadership perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a business growth perspective. So that is the name of the game, my friend. All right, walk us through number 9, not knowing your numbers.
Yeah, this one's really, really big. And so if we lay out the funnel that we use, which I would recommend something like this for anybody, especially if you're service-based, you get a lead, then what we want to do is we reach out to that lead and we try to book them for a sales call. And then we get on the phone, we execute that sales call, and we try to close them into a client. So there's really like 4 numbers that we care about. Obviously, we do care about our cost per lead because we don't want our cost per lead to shoot through the roof. We need to know that. We need to know how many of those people are we booking into sales calls. We need to know how many people are not showing up to those calls. And then of the people that do show up, how many are we converting into clients? Because when you know all those numbers, you know what your bottleneck is. Whereas what I see with a lot of owners is they don't know any of those numbers. So all they care about is like, I just want to have a lot of leads for not a lot of money. But then you don't know your ability, like what's your bottleneck in that funnel? Is it that you're not booking sales calls? Is it that you're booking a lot of sales calls, but a lot of them are no showing you? Is it that you're getting a lot of people on the phone, but you have a really bad close percentage, so you don't have the ability to convert them into clients?
And I want to interject here, my friends. There is always going to be a bottleneck unless you live in an external planet or you ride a unicorn. In any sales and marketing system, you're always going to have a bottleneck. So I just want to reaffirm that, and the value of what you're saying, Joel, when I hear this is if you don't know your numbers, then you don't know where the bottleneck is. Is that fair to say?
You don't know what needs to be fixed. Mm-hmm. So if you just came to me and you said, hey, I need more clients, I don't know what to fix. I don't know, are your ads not very good and you're not getting a lot of leads? Are you getting leads, but you're not following up with them and booking calls? Are you booking calls, but they're not showing up? So you're not confirming with them. You're not reminding the client that you have a phone call with them. Are you having lots of calls, but not converting them? If you don't know any of those numbers, we don't even know where to start. So it's really, really, really important for you to know your numbers along that journey.
So critical. All right, let's finish this home with number 10. What do you got?
This is arguably the biggest mistake that I see, and that's people not following up with their leads.
Which is crazy mind-blowing, and I'm sure you're going to take us here, but if you invest all the time, all the energy, all your hard-earned marketing dollars to put money in the engine, you don't follow up, you are literally not taking your business seriously.
Yeah, so you can get all these leads, and a lot of times when you get, you might set up your ad where someone opts in and maybe the first thing they see is a sales page. And even if you do that, you're only going to have 10, 15, 20% if you're lucky of those leads that actually buy your thing. That means that you have 80 to 90% of your leads that you have to follow up with. Or you don't have to, but there's 80 to 90% of leads that at one point said, I'm kind of interested. They didn't buy off the first try. And you can either just leave it and waste your money, or you can follow up with them and you could end up converting a lot of those leads into your clients. And I see it all the time. Following up with leads, it takes time. It's tedious. It's a little boring. And it's something that's very easy to be like, oh, I'll just get to that later. But the problem is literally every minute that goes by, once you get a new lead, the chance of that lead engaging with you goes down exponentially. So it's something that you have to treat seriously, you have to take seriously, and you have to put a lot of energy behind it. When you get leads in, if they didn't initially take action on whatever your thing is, maybe that's buy your trial or buy your service, or maybe you're trying just to get them to book their own sales call and they didn't do that. If you don't follow up with those people, you're leaving money on the table, and you have to do it in a timely fashion. You have to put energy behind it. And if you do that, you're going to have a ton of success. But if you don't, you will fail. You'll get frustrated. And it's by far the biggest mistake that I see people make is they don't follow up with all of these leads that they've gotten.
Boom, mic drop. That is your top 10 of mistakes to avoid. And from the direct marketing genius himself, executive director of coaching, not coaching and profitability, that's my brother, but marketing, Joel Kotkas. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we got some time left for a last few minutes of the lightning round, if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so in lightning round fashion, shoot me straight. Joel, what is your biggest passion today and why?
My biggest passion is actually, it's not a modality. It's doing something that just really challenges me, whether it's like fitness at a moment of time in my life, or trying to learn a new hobby or new skill, or something that we're working on as a brand, like whatever really takes a lot of my attention and demands a lot of me. That's what I'm like passionate about in that moment. Just something that really challenges me that I can work really hard at. Hard work makes me feel good.
Yep.
And obviously then I just become really passionate about it.
And you're a thinker. And I think that bodes well in a lot of the complex problems that you continue to solve, not only for your locations, for our entire brand. Next up, what would you say from your lens, Joel, is your zone of genius?
I struggle with this all the time because I try to think I try to go too granular with like, what is my zone of genius? But when I really think about it, I would say the ability to look at a problem, sit back and analyze it, and then come up with maybe not the best solution, but like more times than not, come up with a solution that's a winner. And I think that's probably an area that is one of my zones of genius, is that ability to problem solve in certain environments.
Absolutely. And I think it's, again, we shot this in another episode with my brother Barrett, go to the bird profiles, the personality styles. And I think that's the high L in you, really, likes to reverse engineer problems and really, find solutions. So next up, what would you say from your lens is your biggest accomplishment to date, and why?
My family. I have an amazing wife. I've got 3 amazing kids. It's hard work. It takes a lot of energy, but by far, that's like the biggest accomplishment of my life.
Yeah, good on you, man.
Yeah.
Habits, they are foundational to success. And one of the bullet points you talked about in the top 10 of mistakes of direct marketing is being not consistent. And I feel like habits are really a manifestation of consistency. So what's been a habit that you've picked up over the years that's really led to your incredible success?
Right into consistency, waking up early. So when I was still a geophysicist and we were going through this transition, because I was a geophysicist for a year once we opened our first Fit Body. So the only time that I could work on our Fit Body was first thing in the morning. So I'd get up at 4 a.m., I'd work for a couple hours, and then I would go to work as a geophysicist. And that sort of laid the foundation of getting up early. And I've maintained that habit for 7 years. And a lot of times people ask me, like, especially a lot of my colleagues that are still geophysicists or still doing something, and they want to do something else, but they just don't know how to like step away from that thing. I'm not special. I don't have a special talent, but I just made the commitment of that habit of just getting up early and working on the thing that I needed to work on. And that's what gave me the ability to build something that I could then move into. So I always tell people, waking up at 4 a.m., that's what allowed me to have success and transition out of geophysics into something else.
Amen to that. And I want to sing your praises and give you some accolades. Both you and Barrett are basically visiting or staying with me for the next few days while we're doing our EOS Rock Building Day tomorrow, and then shooting this awesome podcast today. And whenever I have a guest in town, since I'm an early riser too, I always have to be conscious of like how loud I'm going to be. But I knew this morning I have no issues making running amok at 4 a.m. because you and Barrett are going to be up with me. So
Yep.
Love that. I'm going to go off script for the last question. And this is a new episode of our newly rebranded Fitness CEO podcast. And you're certainly a fitness CEO of your 3 locations. But more than that, I'm curious from your lens, what does it mean to be the CEO of your business, but also the CEO of your life?
CEO of your business, I think, is just having the discipline and the impact to really grow whatever you're trying to do. Being there for your team, putting all of that first. I think that's really what is required of like a CEO of a business. The CEO of your life, I think it would be the same thing. It's you want to have this impact. You have this vision maybe for what you want to create, but then you just have to know, you have to be there for that vision. You have to take the steps. You have to have the discipline. You have to put the habits in place to create the thing that you've wanted to create. And I know I'm very grateful at times because I think I'm loving the journey, and I think if more people could do that, they always have this destination that they want to achieve. But if you can just take the steps that you want of this life that you're trying to create and then be grateful of that journey that you're on and those steps that you're taking, I think you'll end up being really, really happy.
Well, before we wrap, I just want to take a second to acknowledge you. It's been an incredible journey. I've been in the trenches with you for nearly a decade. So rewarded and, grateful for the experiences that we shared. I love you as a person, as a man, as a family man, first and foremost. And it's just absolutely incredible to see what you and Jared have done at your local businesses in Alberta, but also too on the brand. And I mean this at every fiber of my being, what you've brought to the table already and what you will continue to bring to the table is a foundational reason for the transformation that we're going through as a brand right now. So I want to thank you and acknowledge you for that, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, friends. I know you got a ton of value from this episode. Assuming you did, give us a like, give us a subscribe on YouTube, write us an awesome review on iTunes, and drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. We'd love to continue to engage. Joel, appreciate you having on again. And friends, we will see you in the next episode.